Everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating corner of law that, believe it or not, affects pretty much everyone. We're talking about contracts that look totally solid on the surface, but are actually built on some seriously shaky ground. Okay, let's get right into it. So, think about it. You've got a signed contract in your hand. You've shaken on the deal. It feels final, totally rock solid, right? But what if I told you that some contracts come with a hidden self-destruct button? That even with a signature, the whole deal could legally just unravel? Well, the culprit behind these fragile agreements is something called a vitiating factor. Honestly, you can just think of it as the villain of our story today. It's a fatal flaw, a hidden defect that was there from the very beginning, and it completely spoils the agreement, calling the whole thing into question.
Now, when one of these vitiating factors, one of these villains, is discovered, the law doesn't just have one simple response. The contract gets sent down one of two very, very different paths. It can either be declared void or voidable.
Okay, so here's the absolute heart of the matter. A void contract is treated as if it never existed in the first place. It's a complete nothing, a nullity. It's like a blueprint for a house that was just never built. A voidable contract, though, that's a different beast. That's like a faulty house that was actually built. It's a real working contract, at least until the innocent party decides to pull the lever and, well, tear it all down.
So let's start by walking down that first path, shall we? Let's explore the world of the void contract, the deal that, in the eyes of the law, was never really a deal at all.
The fancy legal term for this is void ab initio. It's Latin, and it means void from the beginning. And trust me, it is every bit as absolute as it sounds. The law literally hits a rewind button and says, nope, this agreement never ever happened. It's completely wiped from the record. And this has some massive, real-world consequences. We're talking zero legal effect. No rights, no duties, nothing. But here's the real kicker, the most critical part. Because the contract never existed, legal ownership, what lawyers call title, of any goods can't actually be transferred. This means if you buy those goods down the line, even if you had no idea anything was wrong and you're completely innocent, you are not protected. You don't get to keep them. Ouch.
So what kind of disaster causes such a drastic outcome? Well, it's usually something huge. We're talking about a fundamental mistake about the very heart of the contract, or if the whole point of the deal was just plain illegal from the get-go.
All right, let's switch gears and explore that second path, the voidable contract. This is where things get way more nuanced, because now one party gets to make a very important choice.
A voidable contract, you see, it starts its life as a perfectly valid, totally legal agreement. It works, it's real. The thing is, because of that hidden flaw, one party, the innocent one, is basically given a superpower, the option to either stick with the deal, which is called affirming it, or to cancel it completely, which is called rescinding it.
And this right here shows the huge difference when it comes to innocent people caught in the middle. Because the contract is valid until it gets canceled, ownership can legally pass from one person to another. So if goods are sold to an innocent buyer before the original wronged party rescinds the contract, that new buyer is usually safe. They get to keep the goods. It all comes down to the power of choice and timing.
So what causes this situation? Well, typically we're talking about things that involve some kind of improper pressure or deception. Things like misrepresentation, where you're lied to, or duress and undue influence, where you're basically bullied or forced into a deal you don't want.
Okay, theory is great and all, but let's see how this stuff actually plays out in a courtroom. We're going to pit two classic legal cases against each other to perfectly show the dramatic difference between void and voidable. Welcome to the Rogues Gambit.
First up in the showdown, we have Cundy versus Lindsay, a wild story of deception by mail from way, way back in 1878.
So here's the setup. A con artist, a real rogue, starts writing letters to a manufacturer named Lindsay. He's pretending to be another, very respectable business. Lindsay, thinking the order's legit, ships him a huge quantity of handkerchiefs on credit. What does the rogue do? He immediately turns around and sells them to a totally innocent buyer, Mr. Cundy. Now, the key fact here is that Lindsay only ever meant to do business with that reputable firm, not some random scammer.
So what did the court decide? Bam! The contract was void from the very beginning. Why? Because of a fundamental mistake of identity. Since Lindsay never intended to deal with the rogue, a contract was never even formed. And because it was void, you guessed it, the legal ownership of those handkerchiefs never left Lindsay. The devastating result? Poor innocent Mr. Cundy, who did absolutely nothing wrong, had to give them all back.
Okay, now let's fast forward almost a century to a case that looks super similar on the surface, but with one tiny, game-changing difference. This is Lewis versus Avery.
So this time, a rogue shows up in person at Mr. Lewis's door to buy his car. He's charming and he claims to be a famous actor. Lewis totally buys it and accepts a check for the car. The check, of course, is a complete fake. The rogue takes off with the car and immediately sells it to an innocent student, Mr. Avery. Now here's the crucial difference. Lewis intended to sell the car to the actual physical person standing right there in front of him. He was just mistaken about who that person was.
And the court saw differently this time. They ruled the contract wasn't void, it was voidable for fraudulent misrepresentation. A real contract had been formed between Lewis and the guy he was looking at. So by the time Lewis figured out he'd been scammed and tried to cancel the deal, it was too late. The car was already sold. And because a valid contract existed at that moment of sale, Avery, the innocent buyer, got good title. He got to keep the car.
So let's put these two head to head. In Kundi, the mistake about who you're dealing with from a distance meant no contract ever existed. It was void. The innocent buyer lost everything. In Lewis, a face-to-face lie created a real contract that could be canceled. It was voidable. But because the cancellation came too late, the innocent buyer was protected. What a massive difference a single detail can make, right?
So, after all that, what is the one big thing you really need to remember from all of this?
This slide right here, this is your ultimate cheat sheet. Void means it was never real, so property can't legally change hands. Period. Voidable means it was real until someone hit the cancel button, so property can change hands in that window of time. That's the whole ballgame. And as we just saw, it can mean the difference between keeping your new car and watching it get towed away.
And that pretty much wraps it up. It's a powerful reminder that not all agreements are as solid as they look. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you're about to shake on a deal, what's that one hidden flaw, that one potential vitiating factor that you'll be on the lookout for? Thanks for joining me.